Alright everyone, Monza never disappoints, and 2025 was no exception. Welcome back to the Pitwell Pod. The Temple of Speed gave us chaos, drama, heartbreak, and some seriously wild overtakes. The Tifosi were louder than ever. The slipstreams were insane, and honestly, my heart rate still hasn't calmed down. Let's grab a coffee, talk through the madness, and break down everything that went down at the Italian Grand Prix. Free practice 1. Alright, let's kick things off with free practice 1, and what a way to start the weekend in Monza. Under blue skies and with the Tifosi already in full voice, Lewis Hamilton topped the session, leading a Ferrari 1-2 ahead of Charles Leclerc. Yep, the seven-time champ is still making headlines, though let's not forget he's carrying a five-place grid penalty after Zandvoort, so Ferrari fans might want to keep what in the back of their minds. Hamilton's 120.117 came right at the end, snatching P1 from Leclerc by just 10, 1/10 seconds of Carlos Sainz in the Williams, made it into third, followed by Max Verstappen and home hero Kimi Antonelli in P5. Lando Norris, who needed a bounce back after his tough Dutch Grand Prix, ended up sixth, almost a second off Hamilton's pace. There were a few messy moments too. Norris was the first to head off into the runoff at turn 1. Leclerc and Hülkenberg also struggled with the tailwind into the chicane, and Paul Aaron spun on entry at the second chicane. Isaac Hadjar gave us the biggest scare through going off at Ascari and dragging half the gravel trap back with him, which brought out a red flag. Meanwhile, rookies Alex Dunn and Paul Aaron were in the spotlight, taking over Piastri's McLaren and Colapinto's Alpine. Neither set the timing screens all light, but their valuable laps at Monza are never wasted. And in true Monza style, we had some drama even under red flag conditions. Leclerc overtook a Kickshaber right as the session was stopped. The stewards looked into it, but decided no further action was needed. Ferrari fans breathed and sighed of relief there. So FP1 wrapped up with Ferrari looking strong, Hamilton on top, Leclerc close behind, and the Tifosi already daring the dream. But as we know, it's only Friday. Free practice 2. So FP2, and this time it was Lando Norris who stole the show after Ferrari dominated FP1. McLaren hit back in the afternoon, with Norris topping the session on softs with a time of 1:19.878. He was only 800ths of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc though, and Carlos Sainz kept Williams right up there in P3, just a tenth of Norris. Monza is serving as a proper mixed bag at the top, but of course this wouldn't be Monza without a bit of drama. Kimi Antonelli gave the home crowd a scare, spinning out at Les Motu and breaching his Mercedes in the gravel. That brought out the red flag early on and gave McLaren just enough time to fix some, let's say, creative mirror situations. Piastri had a cracked one, Norris lost his completely, so yeah, FP2 was basically being run with 1.5 McLaren mirrors between them. Pierre Gasly also had a wild trip through Ascari, showering the track with gravel, while Alex Albon had a huge moment at Lesmo 1, but somehow held on to it. The Williams looked quick, but Albon's heart rate probably not so much. On the softs, Norris set the benchmark, but it wasn't plain sailing. He had to abandon his first push lap after a moment at Rogia, then nailed his second attempt. Leclerc meanwhile complained of zero grip, and still somehow went P2, while Verstappen called his car jumpy and nervous. Not exactly the feedback you want heading into qualifying weekend. Behind the top three, Piastri slotted into P4, though he will have a chat with the stewards after apparently entering the fast lane of the pit lane during the red flag stoppage. Hamilton rounded out top 5, but also had a trip into the gravel later on. Verstappen was only 6th, then Albon, Hülkenberg, Tsunoda and Russell. who thankfully got back on track after his early hydraulic issue in FP1. So yeah, Norris takes FP2, Ferrari stay right in the fight, and Williams looked rapid. And Antonelli gave us all a heart attack. And that is only Friday. Saturday is gonna be spicy. Free practice 3. FP3 at Monza, and it was Lando Norris back on top, laying down a 119.331 to an end final practice fastest. But he didn't get it all his own way. Charles Leclerc split the McLarens in second, just 200ths of a second off Norris, and Oscar Piastri slid into third, making another super tight fight heading into qualifying. It was a pretty quiet start to the session, with most drivers taking about 10 minutes to even set proper laps, a lot of tire scrubbing and system checks. But once the pace picked up, so did the drama. Hamilton, Behrman, Bortoleto, and Sainz all ran wide at turn 1. With that tricky tailwind, Isaac Hadjar was the first to go for soft, but it was Yuki Tsunoda who surprisingly popped up the quickest on the hards early on. Then Verstappen threw himself into the mix with a 120 on the soft before Leclerc went just a hundredth of a second slower. Faster, Ferrari fans were buzzing, but Charles nearly lost it at Parabolica. With a massive oversteer snap, Verstappen did improve with a 119.6, though he wasn't thrilled about Esteban Ocon getting in the way. Classic Monza traffic chaos. As the clock wound down, the quali teams came out. Norris nailed a lap good enough to stay P1, while Piastri closed the gap in P3. Leclerc gave the Tifosi more hope with a storming final effort to go just 200ths of a second off Lando, but he also had another sketchy moment, dipping his rear tire in the Lesmo gravel. Living on the edge, Charles. Behind the top three, Verstappen was only fourth. George Russell right behind him in fifth, and Gabriel Bortoleto impressed again in sixth. Hamilton could only manage P7 and was on the radio asking for more speed, not the confidence boost you won before quali. Rounding out the top 10 were Hadjar, Antonelli, and Albon. So FP3 sets up perfectly. McLaren versus Ferrari versus Red Bull. All within 2 tenths, Norris has the edge right now. But with Leclerc this close in front of the home fans, qualifying is going to be absolutely fireworks. Qualifying. What a qualifying. Monza gave us everything on Saturday, and in the end, it was Max Verstappen who snatched pole with a mega 118.792, just 700ths of a second clear of Lando Norris, with Oscar Piastri right there in third. Less than 2 tenths covering the top three. Classic Temple of Speed stuff. After a tough Monza last year, Red Bull came back swinging. Verstappen looked on the ropes when Norris briefly grabbed provisional pole in Q3, but Max pulled one of those signature laps out of nowhere to steal it back. Lando will start alongside him, Piastri right behind, which already has us drooling toward turn 1. Ferrari gave the Tifosi plenty of hope, with Charles Leclerc fourth and Lewis Hamilton fifth. But remember, Hamilton's carrying that 5-place grid penalty from Stanford, so he'll come back and promote George Russell and home hero Kimi Antonelli up the order. Ferrari were close, but just couldn't quite hook it up for the front row. Big shout out though to Gabriel Bortoleto, the Kick Sauber rookie, stuck in it in P8 ahead of Alonso and Tsunoda. Continuing his breakout weekend, Haas nearly had Ollie Behrman in Q3, missing out by 100, while Williams, after looking strong in practice, faded to the midfield. Heartbreak for Isaac Hadjar too, from a maiden podium to Zandvoort to a Q1 exit here in Monza. Brutal. So the grid is set. Verstappen on pole, Norris alongside, Piastri and Leclerc right behind. That's three different teams in the top four. Slipstream City down to turn 1, and 50,000 Tifosi holding their breath. Sunday's Italian Grand Prix is shaping up to be absolutely chaos, and we cannot wait. Sunday, race day. Race day at Monza, and it was Max Verstappen back on top again. The Dutchman converted pole into victory, but not without a little early drama of the line. Norris launched like a rocket. The two went side by side. Verstappen squeezed him onto the grass, then cut the chicane. Cue Norris shouting on the radio to avoid a penalty. Max gave the place back on lap 2, only to reclaim it a couple of laps later with a classic Parabolica slipstream pass. After that, game over. Max checked out, managed the pace, and cruised home nearly 20 seconds clear. McLaren's day was a little spicier. A slow pit stop for Norris handed Piastri second, and suddenly the Papaya garage had a team order headache. Eventually, they told Oscar to let Lando through, referring Hungary last year, and Yossi, not thrilled, played ball. That sealed P2 for Norris, P3 for Piastri, and narrows Oscar's title lead down to 31 points. Leclerc brought it home fourth, giving Tifosi something but not everything. Another Monza with no Ferrari on the podium. Russell was solid again in P5. Hamilton climbed from 10th to 6th despite the penalty, and Alex Albon was flying, grabbed P7 for Williams. Rookie Gabriel Bortoleto impressed with P8. Kimi Antonelli napped P9 despite a penalty, and Isaac Hadjar pulled off a stunning pit lane to points drive in P10. Further back it was elbows out, Sainz and Behrman banging wheels, Tsunoda and Lawson clashing again, Ocon picking up a penalty for squeezing Stroll, and Alonso retiring with suspension failure. Hulkenberg didn't even start though. Tough day for Sauber. So Verstappen wins at Monza for the second time since 2022. McLaren locked out the podium behind him. Ferrari falls short again, and the championship gap at top tightens just a touch. The temple of speed gave us chaos at the start, politics in the middle, and domination at the end. Now, Drivers' Championship Top 5. 1. Oscar Piastri with 324 points. 2. Lando Norris with 293 points. 3. Max Verstappen with 230 points. 4. George Russell with 194 points. 5. Charles Leclerc with 163 points. Then, Top 5 Team Championship. 1. McLaren with 617 points. 2. Ferrari with 280 points. 3. Mercedes with 260, 4 Red Bull with 239, and 5 Williams with 86. And that's wrap on Italian Grand Prix here in Monza. Max Verstappen back on the top step, McLaren showing real firepower, and Ferrari, well, giving the Tifosi hope, but not quite the podium they wanted. The Temple of Speed never disappoints, and 2025 was no different. Next up, Formula One packs its bag and heads east from Monza's high-speed straight to the tight, twisty streets of Baku. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix kicks off September 19 to 21st, and its history tells us anything. Baku always brings chaos, street circuit drama, safety cars, late race heartbreak, and we're here for it. Thanks for hanging out with us for the Monza weekend recap. Don't forget to follow, share the pod with your fellow F1 fans, and let us know who your driver of the day was on my Instagram. Until Baku, ciao ragazzi!